Hello everybody and welcome back to a RagNext demonstration. Today I'm going to show you how we loop through multi-dimensional arrays and how that works, and I'll show you some other things we can do with looping as well. So we're going to jump back into our demo Stellar Blackout game project. And I want to show you first the variable that we're going to be looping. So if we go into our global variable list and we look at this array, it's called test array, I just made it. So it's an array type and it has index, name, and count this row, which will be important when we get into the loop so that we remember the names of our columns. So as you can see here, here's some basic data. I just put in an index number. You don't need this. I also put in some names and then count this row. So let's jump to our player object. I like to do a lot of my testing here because it's always available and ready for our testing. So let's go ahead and create an action. And when you see here the new action blank, that's the default value. This examine comes from our action library, which I had showed you in an earlier video on how to do that. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll say test array variable. So once we get the game going, this is what we're going to click on the player to do our testing. So let's jump in here. Now, each time you're creating a new action, you always start with your action start, and your trigger event, as I had mentioned, is user clicked. You could also switch it to an event driven action, but right now we're just using user clicked. So what we're going to do is start looping. So we will click condition. And if you look at your condition list, it picked it by default because it's the first one. But under general, we have a for each loop. There's also other conditions you can do. You can check attributes, gender, in room, those sorts of things. So anyway, we're going to pick a for each loop, and we're going to pick a variable, and we're going to pick our array. So we're going to connect these together so they will execute. And what you see here on the right-hand side of our for each loop is a loop body and a completed. So each and every item that's in that array, each row, is going to go through this loop body, and once it finishes going through all the items, it's going to complete and we'll move on. And so, you know what, actually, let's initially count this row and make sure that's working. So I'm going to stick a command in between here and I'm going to change the order here. We're just going to drag our new arrows, and I'm going to set a variable. So you can also do a quick search. If I do set, well, let's see, variable, and we can see here we want to do a variable set, and I don't have the variable I want, so let's go ahead and make a new one right here within our code window. And the nice thing about this is you don't need to interrupt your programming. If you realize, hey, I need something, but I don't have it right now, and you're in the middle of your coding, you just add it here and you can fill it in later if there's more details like a new room or something like that. So we're going to say count of items, or let's see, count of variables. And we're going to make it an integer number. So we're going to create that and set it to 0. Now, as we loop through it, we're going to check with a condition node whether that, you remember that count this row was yes or not. So what we're going to do is, because we're in a loop, we have access to a special item. Let's see, we're going to do a variable comparison. Here we go. And then we're going to, right here, we're going to pick the cell of the loop item that we're checking. So there's a little button here called text mode. So rather than just picking something out of here, what we have to do is go into our text mode, and you'll see it has these curly braces with special escape characters. So we're going to do a curly brace. And because we're in a loop, there's a special element that's active called loop. So we're going to do loop dot, and if you remember those column names, one was check this row or count this row. So you see it shows up here. So we're going to, in each item, we're going to check the count this row. We're going to see if it equals yes. And if it does equal yes, we're going to increase our variable here. I have to select it. Count of variables is equal to 0. So after you add it, you have to select it, obviously, right? So we're going to do an increment, variable increment of count of variables by 1. So each time we hit that, we're going to increase it by 1. And then after we're done looping through everything, we go to this completed, and we're going to zoom it on down here, and we're going to say, I finished looping and we found, and then we're going to stick in our variable. So variables, count of variables. So there it is. So that's all we have to do to loop through all of those items. So let's go ahead and do a quick save, and then we'll do a test and see how that works for us. So I'm going to republish our game to our Unity engine, and I'm running on Windows, so I selected Windows, obviously. Let's wait a minute for it to compile. There we go. Let's go ahead and run the game. So we're jumping back into our game now. This is the player. It's zipped up into a distributable package for everyone. So you're welcome to share that out with your friends, put it on Steam, whatever you'd like to do. All right, so some of you have seen this game before. We'll pick female this time, and we can examine our little character. We can go back to the room. Anyway, what I wanted to show you is test array variable. So let's go ahead and click on that. And look at that. I finished looping and we found 2. And that's what we were expecting. If you remember right, we had 2 lines. Let's go back into our variable. 2 lines that had yes for count this row. So 1, 2. So that worked.